Thank you for coming. As you can see, I'm joined here by District Attorney John Chisholm. We're announcing that we're forming a task force to investigate a series of unsolved homicides spanning 21 years. This task force will include the Milwaukee Police Department's Cold Case Squad, the District Attorney's Office, the State Division of Criminal Investigation, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have discovered 6 homicides that are linked by one suspect's DNA profile that was taken from each of the victims. The victims in 5 of our cases were African American females. We know that they were working as prostitutes in a very high-risk occupation. A 6th victim, a white female, was involved in drug use and sales. Suspect DNA was recovered from her as well. These homicides date back to 1986. We now know the most recent one occurred in 2007. Continuing advances in DNA technology have made this linkage possible. And because of that, we have formed the task force to gather more information about this unknown suspect. Now, in the past, we might have linked some of these homicides through their method of operation. But theory has given way to technology. Within the last couple of weeks, we have been able to confirm a link. As DNA technology advances, we in law enforcement across the country are discovering more patterned homicides, particularly those involving prostitutes. Currently, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and Mesa, Arizona are all investigating unsolved patterns of murdered prostitutes that have been linked by DNA. Now, we have compared the DNA in our cases to the National DNA Data Bank, and we can assure you that the deaths in Los Angeles, Mesa, and Las Vegas are not related to our investigation. Now, these deaths over the last 21 years, between 1986 and 2007, happened against a backdrop of an average of 116 homicides a year during that time. During that 21-year period, there were 2,605 homicides in Milwaukee. 78% were cleared by arrest. Of those homicides between 1986 and 2007, 42 were murdered prostitutes, with a clearance rate of 31%. Now, this suspect, with the DNA that we have uncovered in these 6 cases, has been able to avoid and evade law enforcement for these last 23 years. He has never been arrested for a felony, as he does not appear in any DNA database. Now, District Attorney John Chisholm's office has great experience prosecuting DNA cases, and he will now speak to that issue.
We are committed to bringing justice to the victims and their families. As part of that, I have committed my resources. I have experienced investigators, and I have probably the most experienced and knowledgeable prosecutor in the country as it relates to investigations related to DNA and prosecutions related to DNA. As the Chief indicated, we know we have a DNA profile located, connected to 6 different cases at this point in time. What is unique is that this individual is not in any known felony database as of yet. And so because of that, we are going to use constitutionally sound and approved methods to continue this investigation under the guidance of the Milwaukee Police investigators and under Assistant District Attorney Norm Gahn. As we proceed, I am absolutely convinced that we will identify this unknown DNA profile, and we will link it. But we are going to ask one thing from the community. We are going to ask for your support. We're asking for your support in the form of information, and we're asking at the appropriate time that you cooperate with us as we try to identify this individual. The number to reach us with any information that you have will be area code 414-935-1212. Again, area code 414-935-1212.
We're going to continue to resubmit DNA samples from other murdered prostitutes. They're going to go to the Wisconsin Regional Crime Lab. When these results come back, we may be linking additional homicides to this suspect. We're in the process of submitting over 20 unsolved cases for DNA examination. We have already determined that 5 suspects in murders of other prostitutes completely unrelated to this investigation have been identified because their DNA matched open homicide cases. 3 of them are already in prison for cleared homicides of other prostitutes. As the technology continues to evolve, so have our methods of investigating homicides and the likelihood that we will make more connections between other offenders and murdered prostitutes, as well as this unknown offender. We have resubmitted data in at least 24 unsolved cases of homicides of prostitutes, and we are awaiting the return of that information. And finally, to reinforce what the district attorney just said, the tip line is 414-935-1212. Now we can take a few questions, but we'll both be obviously guarded in our answers.
Chief Flynn, what you're describing here is a serial killer, and that term is going to get people worried in this city. What should they know about this serial killer, and what can they do to really help you?
Well, I think one of the challenges for us is those who have loved ones in the community that work as streetwalkers, quite honestly. That's an extraordinarily vulnerable population. It's a population that probably is one of the most dangerous occupations there is. Our challenge is obviously to find an unknown suspect who conducts his business in secret with consensual potential victims. And so it is going to be difficult for us, and I think what we're going to really have to depend upon is gossip among other street workers as well as information from families.
Are there any other links outside of them being prostitutes in the DNA, maybe a location in town where these victims were found?
There are a number of factors that we are looking very closely at. And again, we're working with the FBI. We're going to develop profiles. And I say profiles because it's not just the unknown DNA profile. We're going to work with experts in the field to identify other means of identifying this person. And then we're going to take advantage of the changes in technology that allow us, for example, to search databases for close matches. Close matches meaning that we're not going to get exactly a one-for-one match, but you may very well find relatives who we can then use to follow up leads. And we've done so successfully. We, being law enforcement, have done so successfully. And that's one of the methods that we anticipate employing as we go further.
Chief, was there ever anything that could have led to this conclusion earlier without the DNA, that there could have been a link that was missed?
As I said earlier, one can always develop a theory retrospectively. The DNA technology evolved. In the 1990s, the first time DNA was submitted, we didn't get any hits. In around 2000, we submitted some DNA and got 2 hits. And now in 2009, we're finding the DNA technology's evolved, where now we've linked 6. And so based on this promise, we've submitted 24 more cases, because there may in fact be other cases linked to this unknown offender. As well as I've said before, we've established linkages with other offenders that are currently in custody.
Do you believe the suspect still lives here in the Milwaukee area?
We don't know. We have no idea. He does not appear in any databases. We don't know if he lives in the Milwaukee area. But we are going to have to count on some real good cooperation out there among people that are both engaged in the sex trade as well as their family members. We're going back. The reason we have a task force is so we can have that many more bodies to talk to people, run down leads. As the DA just indicated, get an FBI profile put together. I mean, this is going to be an all-court press.
The question about the task force that was earlier established, what can you learn from that task force, the experience that happened more than 10 years ago, and why was it disbanded at that point? In terms of technology wasn't there, but there were some linkages at that point. Why was it disbanded, and what can you learn from that experience?
Well, I would argue that it's never really been disbanded, in the sense that again, we're talking about what's commonly referred to as a cold case homicide, as opposed to a hot case, which is your exigent, immediate, pressing needs, which consumes a lot of your resources. When you have the ability, you constantly go back again and again and again and try to develop additional leads. We never stop. We never stop. There's no statute of limitations here, and we have a long-standing tradition of trying to bring justice to our victims. So the answer is that even though that task force itself may have moved on, the focus from the Milwaukee Police Department, from their homicide division, has never let up. They keep coming back to these until those cases are solved. And we've got a lot of examples, a lot of very positive examples to give of successes in that field.
And keep in mind, over this course of the same period of time, 2,900 homicides, 2,900 other homicides are being investigated. So it's not an excuse, it's just perspective. And within that 2,900, we have found a pattern connecting 6. And that's a pattern clearly we're going to follow up now with this task force. Thank you all very much for attending.